Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today we are going to react to a bloater take, which is somebody who is the final form of toxic ritualistic, which is what I call E followed by the letter D on this channel. This is somebody who is basically gone. Their whole persona, their identity, everything is gone. All that is left is the problem. In this case, it is binge, bingo. Bingo, change out the O, put an E. This person is what I would call a bloater. I use The Last of Us Zombies, stage 4, the final stage. So her entire existence is to push E followed by letter D onto the population. That's literally all she cares about. It's all she does. It's her whole entire job. It's everything. And I felt like this video gave a really good take on the psychology of a bloater because she kind of just breaks everything down. I'm always jarred when they think that what they're saying is normal. I think that's what really shows how like mentally ill these people are, especially at extremely severe levels. So you have to remember, I was a clicker. I was stage 3. I never got this far. This is like a whole other level. This is somebody who will die for the cause. This is somebody who is completely focused. And you'll see that she kind of betrays certain things about the problem because she's so severe and she's at the final stage. So let's go ahead and get started.
I know that I'm not alone in seeing a lot of stories lately of people pursuing intentional weight loss, and people get to do what they want with their own bodies. That's fine. But we can get so caught in hearing stories about people pursuing weight loss that we don't get to hear all the stories of people who are intentionally not choosing to pursue weight loss. And I am intentionally choosing to not pursue weight loss. And there's a lot of reasons. Some of which are things like, I know that weight loss isn't sustainable over the long run. And I know that weight cycling puts me at higher risk for certain health conditions. I know that when I've pursued intentional weight loss in the past, I
have to edit that.
Nearly killed me. I know that I don't want to be hungry, that doesn't feel good to me anymore the way that maybe it did in the past. But there's more to it. It's not only those things, although those things are really important. It's also about living in alignment with my values. For me, and people can have their own ways of looking at this, but for me, I can't hold fat liberation as a value and also be trying to shrink myself. And I have worked really hard to take up space, physical space, emotional space, mental space, and I can't separate those. As soon as I try to start making my body smaller, it makes my entire presence smaller. It shrinks my mind, it shrinks my ability to take up emotional space, and I'm not giving up my hard-won visibility and willingness to take up space. The other thing is that it feels right now more than ever that we've got so many things coming at us, trying to take us from ourselves. And this is something that nobody can take away from me. My commitment to living in the body that I'm living in right now and being fully nourished and holding my values central and staying committed to fat liberation is something that's within me. It's not something that anything external to me can take away. And I know that I'm better able to show up not only for myself, but for other people when I am fully nourished and living in my body the way that it is. So I will not be pursuing intentional weight loss, not through any means. I can understand and empathize with why people may be pursuing intentional weight loss, but that's not a path that I'll be going down.
Okay, so much there. So obviously she really breaks down every single talking point. You have to remember the bloaters, they are the leaders of the charge. So she's trying to rein everybody in. So everything that she says is like a rallying cry. It's like a battle cry, basically, because she positions herself as a leader. You guys can't see, but this was also liked by Virgie Tovar. Interesting, also a bloater. But that's what I want to say first of all, is she goes through a lot of different talking points to reinforce to everybody, to all of her underlings, basically. Other than that, you can see where some of those deeply DIS ordered aspects peek through. And I don't think that she understands how I don't know how to say this, disturbing it is to say that to try to downsize or try to weight normalize is getting rid of her like thoughts or something. Did you hear that? Wasn't that odd? I think that was one of the weirdest things. And it comes from having a complete lack of identity outside of the issue. She has zero identity outside of it. So if she ever tries to get out, it is as if she is dying, because the entire, like her entire brain is centered on this. There's nothing left. I don't know if there's anything to go back to. And this is something that I have discussed. I discussed this with Robin on my channel. Like, can a bloater come back? I don't know. You know, to me, I feel like when you reach this far, it's like the life has left your eyes already. It's like there's nothing, there's no humanity in you at all. Like even a clicker, they'll have some interests that have nothing to do with their weight. They'll have hobbies, they'll have friends, they'll care more about finding a relationship or something. You know, they'll even care about politics or something. It's not like literally everything is about that. Although it's still pretty much that way. You're still going to have like, you know, like for example, the park hoppers, plus size park hoppers, they're all clickers, but they are obsessed with Disney. So there is still something else to it. With a bloater, there is nothing else. This is it. That's the best way I can describe it. And then clickers are also more about their own issues. They're not typically trying to promote issues in others entirely. They certainly don't to the point that she is, where she's completely dedicated to it. So it is different, but I'm just trying to further explain what I'm talking about when I talk about a bloater. So let's go ahead and break this down piece by piece.
I know that I'm not alone in seeing a lot of stories lately of people pursuing intentional weight loss, and people get to do what they want with their own bodies. That's fine.
So I'm surprised that she said that, but that is the current talking point, I think, because they had to seed that ground. They had to accept that. I noticed that around 2024. Again, I've been around, Dr. Rachel, I've been around a little bit. I've been doing this activism since the start of 2023. I had a little bit of it. I dipped a toe in 2022, but I really committed in 2023. And I noticed in 2024 that all of a sudden body autonomy somewhat existed. And it wasn't the first half of 2024, it was the second half, babes. It was the second half. But I noticed that they shifted that, particularly in 2025. So she's still going in line with that talking point. But remember, it's always subject to change. This video is from August 12th, 2025. So she was still pushing that point. They were probably still just launching that, or just trying to cement that. Not really just launching, but further trying to cement it at the time. So what they want is they want you to forget that there was ever a time that they were against body autonomy. They want you to forget that there was ever a time that they were pushing that to downsize it all is fat phobic. And they said that throughout all of the 2020s until about late 2024, going into 2025. Like I said, I witnessed that shift. So there is a little bit of that manipulating of the narrative, but remember, it could always change. So wherever the toxic ritualistic zombie fungus spores blow in the wind, they're usually the ones deciding the direction. So just keep that in mind. That could always change. I'll tell you if it changes. Right now, the major headwinds, they're all against Ozempic. That's their biggest target. And they've really latched onto that because I think it's something that they can use to unify the zombie horde, because social media is very fragmented these days, especially comparatively to like 2020. So it's harder for them to jump onto other talking points. It's harder for them to do that because I think algorithms have changed. It's different now. Algorithms have changed, generations have shifted, it's different. So they have to find something to latch onto. And so the big thing is Ozempic. Ozempic is horrible. Ozempic is horrible. Ozempic is horrible. You know, she herself has threatened it. And she said, like, they should be, like, she wants to basically, she wants the people pushing Ozempic to be, like, hurt or to lose money, or, you know, she wants some kind of revenge for that. She said that recently. That one was a more recent video. But again, she's one of the leaders, so she will say the talking points. So probably by the end of the year, they'll all be like ravenously against Ozempic, which they already basically are. That's like the biggest thing. The other trend that I see is, well, there's a lot. There's a lot of different ones, but that's the one that I'm seeing that's super focused. But they're doing a lot of the I'm fat and that's what an adult woman looks like. So they're trying to connect it to the files. And that's a big one too. But that one is so, I think it's really off-putting to the general population. So I don't know if that one sticks as much. That's more of like a zombie horde thing. But yeah, it's a little complicated, but if you pay attention to, they all say the same things. So they follow these people.
But we can get so caught in hearing stories about people pursuing weight loss that we don't get to hear all the stories of people who are intentionally not choosing to pursue weight loss.
So I think that it's totally delusional to act like, that is something I'm seeing a lot this year too, which this is probably just beginning in 2025, but this idea that not downsizing is revolutionary, that not downsizing is some kind of resistance, that not downsizing is, you know, we're sticking up for ourselves or something like that. So that's a big one. They still do that one now. That one will last a while probably. But that's, I think, what she's touching upon. That's probably right around the time that this was starting. This talking point was beginning. And it's super delulu. Like, if you look at people that don't downsize, it's almost everybody. I literally did a video where I wrote something called The Last of Us Actually Losing the Weight, because it's actually incredibly rare. From 2022 to 2025, less or about 1% of Gen Z, so people that are in their like younger than 30 in 2025, 18 to 30 in 2025, 1% or less than 1%, if you count a margin of error, went from being obese to not obese. 1%. So that means 99% of obese people stayed obese within especially that younger demographic. Even the highest demographic, which was Gen X, it was still 5%. And that's in 3 years, meaning that it was around 5%, meaning that 95% of Gen Xers that are obese are still obese. So you don't really have to have representation of somebody choosing not to downsize. That is so incredibly delusional. beyond any level. The idea that everybody is becoming skinny is not real at all. It's just not. I wish it was to a certain extent. I mean, I want it to be healthful and weight normalized, but it's not. It is a fantasy. And I hope that those of us in anti FA are not believing that, because that's not true. We're talking very low numbers. I will report them again. I like to report them every January to see how we're doing. And things have stagnated. That's what I've seen. There has been a stagnation. So it's no longer rising, which does give us some hope and some opportunity. But it could always go back. And I'm aware of that. And I have to tell y'all to be aware of that. Regardless, this sort of gaslighting that she's doing, that it's just so common to see everything all the time, it's not true. It's just not by any stretch.
And I am intentionally choosing to not pursue weight loss.
It's totally redundant.
And there's a lot of reasons, some of which are things like,
if you're a fat acceptance activist, we already know that you're not. It's in the title of what that is. If you accept fatness, then you're not going to downsize. Duh. There's no point in making this other than if you're trying to encourage other people not to, which is what I'm pointing out. That's exactly what she's doing.
Like, I know that weight loss isn't sustainable over the long run.
So that is a myth. It's not. If you're within bingo, then sure. So put that asterisk there and put, if you're within bingo, then it will come back on. That's true. If you're not, though, it won't. It's really, it has to do with caloric realism. So if you're not constantly fluctuating or swinging drastically or doing weird things, doing behaviors that are not good, then you will not upsize. I have shown that. There are other examples within anti-fat acceptance that are showing that. And there's, I recently promoted Angelica on my channel for an example of weight loss visibility, which I think is really important because it's actually very rare. So it's very rare still. So no, you're wrong. Typically what you're seeing is like somebody who's on like a vanity downsizing journey, somebody who's losing anything from 5 to 30 lbs, which is not like bad or anything. It's just not something that isn't uncommon to see. And it's not exactly life-changing. A lot of people act like it is, but it's not. Like, sorry, it's not. Like, if you're talking downsizing by like 100 as a woman, 150 as a man, that's where your life is changing. That's life-changing. I understand that there can be an aesthetic thing and blah, 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 but I think a lot of that is overblown very often, and it's kind of dramatized, and it's just a bit much. All I can say is my vanity journey, there are some effects socially, but it completely pales in comparison to the complete lifestyle shift and complete shift of foundation of my life from the start of 2024 to the end of it. When I started 2024 as super morbidly obese, and I ended it towards the bottom of obesity, period. Everything changed in my life. I went from not being able to fit into anything to I can fit in everything. I went from my health completely changed. My psychology completely had to shift. Everything was different by the end. And it was so drastic that when I finally went out to Austin with my friends, Lisa and Eric, for those of you guys who know them, I only say that because we filmed there and stuff. I was so shocked at how much healthier I was. I wasn't where I wanted to be health-wise still. I was still like, I just left obesity. It was like barely. But I still was shocked at how much healthier I was and how much I could keep up with things and how it was easier for me than when I was younger. And it was kind of mind-blowing to experience that. and, kind of getting off of the strict guardrails that I was in when I was deep in recovery because I was so deathly ill. Like, for example, I could not drink. I didn't drink at all for 3 years, zero, because I was so severely hypothyroid. So I was able to drink when I went to Austin and I was fine. I was able to get off of some of my limits diet wise too, and I was fine. My thyroid wasn't that bad. It wasn't perfect. I was a little moody after, like when I wasn't drinking anymore. Then I got a little bit depressed, which I think is kind of normal. But it was just so drastic. So the point is, that's the kind of visibility that we need to show more often because people need to see that, especially if they are bigger. And even if they are just, you got to downsize by 50 lbs. People need to see that, It's a little bit more rare. And it's not to say that a bounty journey isn't worthwhile or good or whatever. I think it's fine, absolutely. It just doesn't have the same impact because it's very common. So that I will say.
And I know that weight cycling puts me
It's not inevitable.
at higher risk for certain health conditions.
I don't think cycling is good, but it is not inevitable whatsoever. And it's typically bingo.
I know that when
You're playing bingo, you're in that problem. You're dealing with Pennywise. That's another reference from the channel. I have links in my description if you guys are new.
I've pursued intentional weight loss in the past.
Uh-oh. I have to be careful. So with that, she's telling on herself. She's basically admitting that she has the problem. So that is usually what people will say. She's so far in like false recovery. She's just gotten so much worse. And I think that people forget that it's not just about like people that don't deal with it. I call it the toxic ritualistic, the TR for short. People that don't deal with it, they don't understand that it is definitely behaviors. Like if you're not in the behaviors, then you're not in it. But bingo isn't the only behavior. So remember, there's two other ones. There's also body obsession, and then there is over reduction. Those two things are also a part of it. So typically what happens is somebody will assume that they're recovered because they're no longer in the overly reductive side or bingo, or they're at least not as severe in those, but they become extremely obsessed with their body instead, and then form a whole identity around their body. And in her case, she's so severe that it's like she's created it into like a religion, basically. It's like a whole other level, which I've always stated the toxic ritualistic is a belief system. It's a belief system more than an addiction. It has to do with brick by brick, these different beliefs that you build over time that are delusional, and they get worse and worse the longer you go. So she's going to just continue to spread those bricks, the toxic ritualistic spores, right? She wants to spread that to as many people as she can.
Know that I don't want to be hungry.
You don't have to be. I have had barely any phases in my downsizing journey when I was. I think people just don't want to exercise. You have to get your glucose metabolism going. You got to get the glucose flowing to be less hungry. And people don't want to be active. And you also need the dopamine from that too. And people don't want to be active. So if you have another health issue, then you need to treat it. There's interventions. There's things to be done. If you're having an issue that's making you hungry, there are other options. There are things to do about it. But if we're talking just baseline, you just don't want to be active. You don't want to be active, and you don't want to eat appropriate macros. That's basically why you were struggling with that. I can't even say it because of frickin' Nita.
That doesn't feel good to me anymore the way that maybe it did in the past.
Okay. Sounds weird.
But there's more to it. It's not only those things, although those things are really important. It's also about living in alignment with my
It's like a religion.
values. For me, and people can have their own ways of looking at this, but for me, I can't hold fat liberation as a value and also be trying to shrink myself. And I have worked really
She doesn't really explain that, which I think is interesting. I take it as a sort of flex and also as a sort of like, I have a greater authority. So if we're talking like what she's saying specifically to zombies, so people that are in the problem, she's saying, I am better than you because I stick by it more. So you have to listen to me. That's basically what she's saying. That's the zombie communication. Within the general public, I think it's just odd because she doesn't explain it at all.
hard to take up space, physical space, emotional space, mental
Okay.
space. And
It has nothing to do with being fat.
I can't separate those. As soon as I try to start making my body smaller, it makes my entire presence smaller.
Very, very, very DIS ordered. Very strange. Could not be further from the truth as well, but very strange. So, a lot of times when you are deep in the TR, a lot of times what happens is you start to, there are certain moments, which I've understood this very recently, as I had a severe issue. So, I was very, very dissociated from my body. And you have these moments where you feel anxious or even at times paranoid or depressed. And it's because you're starting to associate with your body again. And I don't mean it in like this crazy paranoia type of thing. I'm not talking like totally nuts. It's usually more mild. It's something like, I don't know if that person likes me. You know, it's something like that. I mean it in that sense. Or it's like, I feel like my car is broken, right? That's a paranoia. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like anything else. Okay. I'm talking about stuff like that. And basically, what it is that you start to feel your body again. And people don't understand like how much you can block your body off. And it's not so much that you're losing your presence or you're becoming smaller, it's you're actually becoming a full person. Like your body is a part of you. Your body does have a psychological influence on you. And if you bar that from your thoughts, that's unnatural. That's not healthy. So something is being added. So what happens is you start to feel how awful you actually feel. And people don't want to feel that. So they want to stay deluded and they want to bar off that those physiological sensations that do have a psychological weight. So what does that mean? It means they refuse to exercise. Because if you do that, you start to feel your body again. They refuse to downsize because if you do that, you start to feel your body again. They refuse to get out of the TR because if you do that, you start to feel not even just your body, but like certain emotions, certain things about yourself that maybe you didn't like. It's not always just a body thing. It's also like our emotions. It could have to do with belief systems. It could have to do, with relationships, like a lot of things. If you're very severe, you're typically burying a lot. And for her, she's burying so much that there's nothing left to bury. It's all gone, And I don't even think she has a survival instinct. I think when you get to that point, it's gone. You can become so disconnected from your body that you cut off the survival instinct, which is, it's truly, it's disturbing to see, but that's what that is. So if you are struggling and you feel like anxious after going to the gym or you feel like some kind of way because you're not engaging in the TR, understand that you're feeling your body again. You're feeling your emotions again. You're feeling these parts of your identity that you've been burying again. That's not you becoming less. That's you becoming more of you. Your body is a part of you. And they'll often say, my body is the least interesting thing about me. Not really. I don't think that's true. Your body is a major part of you. And I think that it's really DIS ordered to cut that off. I really do. And people don't do that for like happy, fun time, glitter, and rainbow reasons. They do that because of deep, deep trauma.
It shrinks my mind. It shrinks my ability to take up emotional space.
No.
And I'm not giving up my hard-won visibility.
No. It's when you start to downsize or when you start to get out of the TR, you develop, again, it's so, there are similarities to addiction, but it's not the same. I always say that because the mechanism is different and there's a polarity to it. So it's like you can do too much or too little, right? That's not the same thing like with alcohol. You could just not drink. So it's not the same with gambling. You could just not gamble. It's multipolar. And so it's different. There's also 3 things that you do within the TR. So a disorder is just a better term for it. But there's still a level of, I want to call it sobriety, that comes to when you stop. There's still a level of awakening, I guess, if we want to talk about that from that perspective. But there's still a time when the delusion ends, when sobriety comes in and you start to feel, for example, how embarrassed you are by some of the things you've been doing in the TR. You start to feel embarrassed about how crazy you've been acting. That's okay. That's going to help you regulate a little bit. And you can start to fit in with society again. But they take that as a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's something that I went through in 2023. I felt so much shame for a lot of how I was acting prior to that year. My reputation was in the gutter. It had been a few times. And some of it was my fault, some of it wasn't. But I wasn't stable prior to that time. And that year I became stable. And my reputation was better after that. And it comes from a sobriety. She doesn't want to go through that. So she's like, no, I don't want this. Da, 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 da. It's like, yeah, you don't want to be healthy. You don't want to be sober. You don't want to be in reality. Okay. That's not a flex. That's disturbing. And you're promoting that in other people. That's horrible.
And willingness to take up space. The other thing is that it feels right now more than ever that we've got so many things coming at us, trying to take us from ourselves.
Give an example. Talk about it. What are you even saying?
And this is something that nobody can take away from me.
Her DIS order is something nobody can take away from me.
My commitment to living in the body that I'm living in right now and being fully
DIS order. DIS order.
And holding my values central and staying committed to fat liberation is something that's within
Bloaterhood.
me. It's not something that anything external to me can take away.
It's the only control she feels she has. Tragic.
And I know that I'm better able to show up not only for myself, but for other people when I...
No. You're not able to show up for people. You don't have any empathy. You can't see past your problem. You can't fully be there for people. You're promoting death. That's not being there for people. That's not being supportive. You're going to die young. You're going to die a lot younger than you would have. That's not being there. Not at all.
I'm fully nourished.
Are you? Because it's very hard to be fully nourished when you're super morbidly obese or when you're obese. Especially, I don't know if she's super morbid, but she's at least probably morbid. It's hard. You know, she might also go up. That could happen too. Especially considering how bad she is in the issue. So she's not already there. She might be there, but when you get there, Dr. Rachel, your digestion is trashed. Your digestion gets trashed anyways. From obesity, your digestion gets trashed from the behaviors that you've done. You said that you've done so many different diets. What does that mean? You said that you had an EFL by letter D in the past. You still do, but that's also damage, and then you continue to do damage. So you're not really stopping it. So it's like, okay, your digestion's probably trashed. Are you actually able to be fully nourished? Are you even eating a balanced diet? People that are this severe, they typically don't because they fear certain things, like, or they feel like, well, if I bingo on this, then I'm going to be okay. This one's okay. That one's not. So it can lead to nutrient deficiencies, even more so than the state of obesity, which already your stomach acid is shot. You can't really digest that well. So it's like, are you? Because it's very difficult to be fully nourished. It's difficult when you're very big. It's hard.
And living in my body the way that it is. So I will not be pursuing intentional weight loss, not through any means. I can understand and empathize with why people may be pursuing intentional weight loss, but that's not a path that I'll be going down.
Okay. So that's it. That one, she was just repeating the point and they're trying to save the image of fat liberation. And it might work, honestly. It might. But that's all that is. That's just a narrative shift, which I already talked about earlier. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one. I'll see you guys tomorrow.